This video is brought to you by Skillshare, but more on that in a moment. Money, moolah, cash, wonga. Cards cost the green stuff. And whilst I'm also really pro proxy, I can see the appeal in having real cards. We all like the OG shit. The smell and feel of premium cardstock between your fingers, unless it's foil, at which point it's probably already warped. I can dig it though. I can dig wanting to have the OG stuff and not have to proxy in a world where things were perfect and accessibility was not an issue. For that reason, in today's video, I'm going to look at the 5 most needed reprints for Commander. These are 5 cards that aren't the most expensive in the format necessarily, although they're up there, but they're cards that see so much play that they really could do with being a little bit cheaper. Because I really do believe that having more people having access to the cards makes for a better time for everyone. In many ways, this list will not bring you some new profound look or some card tech that you've never heard of if you're a super entrenched player. But if you're on the fringe of the hobby, you might realize a card you picked up a couple of years ago for a couple of bucks is now worth a Switch game, or dare I say it, a third or a half of a fucking Nintendo Switch, because these cards are dumb. Further to that, I'm going to add a little bit of commentary and discussion of each one. Is it overhyped? Is it overplayed? Spoiler alert, none of these are. The reason they're so expensive is because there isn't really an alternative to play. And on top of that, it allows us to catalogue and discuss and keep in mind the fact that this is a game where the scarcity is controlled by a mother company for their own benefit, right? These cards aren't expensive for our benefit. They're expensive to keep reprint equity for future sets and future product, to keep the hype rolling. The Kamigawa precons have just been revealed and they're full of cool cards, but now they're also full of new staples, and literally none of the big hot ticket reprints made it in. But before we jump into all that and the top 5 list, I need to make some bread myself so I can buy these overpriced chase rares from a long gone set. This video is brought to you by Skillshare. Some of you might ask, Vince, how did you learn to use the camera settings on your DSLR and light yourself so you don't look like a pasty undercooked sausage roll? Or you might ask, what helped you to level up your thumbnail game, making those tasty morsels of clickable content? Well, my friends, the answer is Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of varied online classes that help you take your creativity to the next level. The platform has helped me to elevate my content game with practical, applicable skills. Like learning how to remove objects from images in Photoshop classes by people like Dmitry Zadnovics, I hope I didn't butcher your name there, my friend, through to more holistic classes like Find Your Starbucks and DJ Pizza. Skillshare is offering the first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description below a free month to try out the website. So why not give it a shot? Hit the link in the description below, support the show, and start your learning journey with Skillshare today. A huge shout out to Skillshare for continuing to support my rather nonsensical brand of card game and hobby content. Like I said, link in the description below for the first 1,000 of my subscribers to get a free month of Skillshare. Right, let's start with one of the big boys, shall we? Number 5, Dockside, Extortionist. Averaging a price of around $70, it's the first and perhaps most obvious example of this needs a fucking reprint going right now. Some might say the price is extortionate. Originally in the Gired and Atali precon with the Tokens Matters theme, which it fit into nicely as it makes a shit ton of treasures, this thing has become a format staple because it does something that other cards just don't do, and it does it better than any card imitating. I've seen many people on Twitter say that my local playgroup doesn't use this, so it's the big deal, which I always find funny. It's really hard and difficult to judge a magic card or similar without actually playing with it first. This card is deceptive to look at. I think when it was first spoiled, some people immediately saw this was going to be very powerful, whilst others sort of just shrugged and said, okay, it's a bit of mana ramp. When we talk of floors and ceilings, well, the floor of this card is very, very low. Worst case scenario, you play it and you make no treasures whatsoever, which is terrible. Best case scenario, he enables you to win by ramping you an obscene amount. The fact that this thing doesn't just check artifacts, but it also checks enchantments makes it almost always useful on a table of Commander. It's kind of wild, actually, and slightly out of colour pie. Why does red here provide you with an anti-enchantment payoff when red normally doesn't interact with enchantments? It's kind of weird. It is comparable to other like mana ramp cards in many ways, but not normally in red. Straight up Desperate Ritual or Seething Song are similar and comparable rituals on the spot mana increases, but they don't last for the following turn. They're one-shot rituals you can't save up. And they don't give you permanents that synergize with other things as well, the treasure tokens do. It's also a creature making it the most easily tutored for, recurred, blinked, and generally abused to an obnoxious degree permanent in the game. And red does have its fair share of mana engines, probably only second to green, like Burgi and Steamkin, but again, they require more work and simply more hoops to jump through than your opponent just playing a game of Magic, which you then monopolize or monetize in a weird way with his treasures. There is another issue to Dockside Extortionist though. It's so good that any red deck should really be playing it if you want to push your power level. Bearing in mind, obviously, not all commander decks need to push their power levels. We get that. That's a caveat I didn't discuss at the beginning. Probably should mention. But the problem is now that it's so fucking good and it's $70, but the rules committee are talking about whether or not it needs to be banned because everyone else is talking about whether it's too good and should be banned. It'd be a real feel bad to buy a $70 commander card that sees next to no play in Legacy or anywhere else, then have it banned. Tread cautiously, my friends, on this little guy until he's perhaps priced a little bit more reasonably. On to number 4, it's Sylvan Library. Printed as recently as Commander Arsenal Green, this thing has had 8 physical printings at this point, yet it still commands a $47 price tag on average. An incredible source of card selection and advantage, because you can just pay the life to keep the cards in hand, because in Commander you start with 40 life, and life is a resource. There really isn't anything quite like Sylvan Library, which is the theme of this list really. It allows you to manipulate the top of your deck too by seeing what is coming up. Maybe you don't want to pay to put them in your hand, so you can sequence fetch lands and other tutor effects to shuffle your library and shuffle away those coming bad draws. There is a reason this also sees play in Legacy alongside fetch lands. I'm always shocked at its price actually, almost every time I see it. I do remember it being $20 in recent time, but that may have been over a year ago now. And Commander Green or Commander Collection Green only served to half its price, which suggests to me that Commander Collection Green didn't really put enough into the general supply to really impact the price in a way that might stick. Where could they reprint Sylvan Library? Perhaps Modern Horizons 3, putting it into Modern, because why the fuck not at this point? Power creep's gone mad, right? Besides that, another master set this year, maybe some sort of unannounced Ultimate or Retro or Eternal or similar master set, or maybe it makes it into Modern still via the Lord of the Rings set, or maybe it'll be in the D&D set that's coming up, which is basically Commander Legends 2. There's a lot of places they could put a themed Sylvan Library. I just don't know if they will. You see, another theme of this entire list is that they aren't going to reprint these in a way that's really that meaningful because they want these cards to push sets. So putting them all out at once and keeping them nice and cheap is not on the agenda. Number 3, Rustic Study. Best part of $40, Rustic Study might be the only one on this list with a comparable counterpart you could play. Mystic Remora is $10 and not as good. And Esper Sentinel, which is again a poor imitation, is in a different colour and is climbing to $25 and up anyway, with no sign of slowing down. So those cards kinda need a fucking reprint too. Rustic Study holds the privileged position of being the best card draw engine in the format, to the point that its "do you pay the one" has become a mimetic joke in and of itself that is pervasive within the fucking community and the game. Do you pay the one? End my life. And on top of all that, there is also further demand for this card, as people don't want to play with versions of Rustic Study anymore that have Therese Nielsen art on them. And the only version that doesn't is a Judge Foil that currently is trending upwards of $200. And before you reach the comments to say she did nothing wrong or keep politics out of this, fuck no, okay? She could have used her platform to support her trans viewers and allies and members of this community instead of apologising for simply having an opinion that might upset people. Not good, don't like it, fuck that. Reprint Rustic Study with more art like this, please. Wizards. Number 2, Smothering Tithe. Whilst I understand why and how this is $40, it feels like it came out yesterday. So I have to exclaim, even though I know why, how is this $40? Smothering Tithe was a Ravnica Allegiance rare that was designed for Commander. I have no proof of that, I have no evidence from a member of the design team saying that, but I will still present it as irrefutable fact. If the people or persons involved in the design of this card claims it was not for EDH, then they were channeling a fucking demon. The spirit of EDH has infested their body and they can't remember doing it. This card is a Commander card through and through. It's the white Rustic Study, but it asks you to pay the 2. At first glance, it deceptively looks like it might be worse, but honestly, it might just be better. Sure, it's not card advantage, but it's similar to Dockside in many ways too. It's got a low floor, but it either disrupts everyone at the table as you gain a minimal tempo advantage as everyone pays the 2 with each card they draw, which is a huge buff for you, or you gain between 1 and 3 mana minimal as you go around the table each rotation, which is absolutely bonkers. This card has been reprinted in the promo slot of promo boosters over the next couple of sets, but it didn't really stop the price from climbing. This is a prime slot for being reprinted into a precon, although there is that argument that then that precon will be worth more than the others. But here's a weird thing. How about make all the precons of equal value, but more in value? I know, I'm basically a fucking communist at this point. Honourable mentions. No list of cards that are grossly costed simply due to artificial, or should I say intended scarcity, would be complete without mentioning Mana Crypt. I didn't want to include it in the 5 because I low-key hate this fucking card. It's in Powered Cube or Highlander or Vintage, sure, but the existence of Mana Crypt and by the same extension Sol Ring in Commander really bums me out. The cheapest version of this card is $179 average at time of writing, and cards like Crypt and Sol Ring, which is a lot cheaper by the way, so it doesn't really fit on the list theme, both are often more powerful than Moxen, depending on your situation, and the Moxen are part of the Power 9 and banned on price alone and rarity. It's a weird card that feels like it's intrinsically linked to Commander whilst also feeling like it sits in this weird space outside of it, but everyone's got the fucking thing anyway. No one game piece for a casual format should be this fucking expensive, unless it's a cosmetic rare version of it. A functional game piece should not be locked behind a $170 paywall. It's insane. Crypt costs you 2/3 of a Nintendo Switch, which is fucking stupid. And at number 1, it's everyone's favourite obnoxious interaction spell. It is a format staple. It is arguably warping to games, and sometimes it makes games go for too fucking long. It's Cyclonic Rift. One of the cheapest cards in today's video, coming in at around just over $30, thanks to 5 reprints, including a pre-con back in 2013. It was Commander 2014, so that's 2013, right? This card has no right being this fucking expensive. To my paper boomer brain, to my decades of caffeine addicted and abused mind, this is just a fringe playable standard card that Mono Blue Devotion occasionally casts off Nykthos, not the Commander powerhouse that it became. I've seen people argue that there are better or at least similarly comparable effects in the game, and those people are often arguing disingenuously to defend their beloved Cyclonic Rift. The one-sided nature of Rift coupled with its instant speed nature makes it so obnoxious at times, it really boils my piss. Sometimes someone casts it, untaps and wins, and you know what, when that happens, I'm all for it. But often they cast it in a panic button situation to survive, and it just prolongs the game with no immediate win, just pushing everyone else to be wildly behind in tempo and board state. In many ways, Cyclonic Rift has become iconic. It's weird to see something iconic when I still feel like it's a relatively new card, but that's because I'm an old man at the ripe old age of 21. If anything, it's as much part of the tapestry and landscape of Commander as the white bubble of Wrath of God, or the opportune beast within to politicize yourself out of a hole. Yeah, I do think Cyc Rift is part of Commander now in a way that it probably will never go away. I'm not advocating bans today, I'm just saying the card's fucking obnoxious. Either way, at $30 a pop, that's kind of dumb, and I could do with a couple of reprints. So what do you think? Did I miss something off my top 5 most desirable reprints for Commander list? Do you think I was too harsh? Do you think I was too soft? Do you think these cards aren't expensive? Are you a consumer capitalist who gets upset when I dare to suggest that accessibility is good? Are you going to be shitty about my opinions on Therese Nielsen in the comments? Because that's just going to get you shadow banned. Either way, drop me a comment because it's all engagement for that beautiful, beautiful algorithm. I've been Vince, also known as PleasantKenobi on the internet. Thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video, and I'll see you all soon. Like, comment, and subscribe, or don't. The video's over now. I'll see you later.